This is lesson 217, problem 264. In this problem, we're going to continue to use our simplification strategies that we've been practicing. And in addition to that, we're also going to begin to write down what we are doing algebraically. Okay, so here is our first expression mats that we have here. So I am going to record what I have on each mat in this table. We call this an LRE table. So it has the left expression, the right expression, and then an explanation of what step we're on and what we're doing. So on my left mat, I'm going to begin in my top region, okay, in the top part of that expression mat. So in this top part, I have negative 2x. I have a positive 1. And I have 1, 2, 3 negative 1, so negative 3. And then I go down to the opposite region. So I'm going to show that I'm going down there by putting my minus. And then everything that I see in the opposite region, I want to put in parentheses. So it's telling me that I will be taking the opposite of everything that's in that bottom region. So in that bottom region, I have a negative x, and I have positive 3, plus 3. Okay, so we've got the left mat. On the right mat, I want to start in the top in the positive region. I have 2 1s, and then minus 3. And then now I have to go down to the bottom region, to the opposite region. So I'm going to indicate that I'm going down to that opposite region by putting a minus. And then everything that's in that opposite region I want to put in parentheses. So that tells me that I'm taking the opposite of everything inside of that parentheses. So in this opposite region I have a positive x and 2 negative 1, so minus 2 or negative 2. Okay, and my explanation here is this is just my original expression. Okay, it's originally what I'm starting with. Okay, then I need to do a legal move. So I always like to flip my regions. First, I like to get everything out of that opposite region. So doing that, so back up for a second, I'm going to just rewrite what I have in the top because I'm not going to change anything that's in the top at this point. So I still am going to have my negative 2x, the positive 1, my minus 3. Okay, and now I need to go down to that opposite region. So I'm going to flip all these tiles up. So this negative x, it's the opposite of negative x, right? The opposite of negative x becomes positive x. So that becomes the positive x. Notice the parenthesis goes away. And then we have the opposite of positive 3. The opposite of positive 3 is negative 3. So I flip these up and they become negative 3. And that's what's happening over here as well. The opposite of positive 3 becomes those negative 3s. All right. And then on the right side, I want to do the same thing. So the opposite of a positive x is a negative x. So I'm going to flip it up and make it what it is. So over here, I'm just going to rewrite that in the top there. I had those positive 2s, negative 3s. And then what we just did was we flipped up then x. So the opposite of x became negative x. And then the opposite of negative 2 is positive 2. So we flip this up, make them what they actually are. So again, the opposite of negative 2 is positive 2. All right, and so the move we did there was we flipped regions, or we flipped the bottom up, okay? So now I'm going to try to make some zeros. When I make zeros, we're really combining like terms. That's what we're actually doing. So I can see here on the left that I have positive 1 and negative 1 make 0. So I'm going to take those off my mat. And I can see that positive x and negative x make 0, so I'm going to remove those. Okay, and so if you see what we did here, that negative 2x, so when we remove that negative x and that positive x, that left us, we were left over with one negative x, or just negative x. And then when we removed a positive 1 and a negative 1, we were left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or minus 5. Okay, and you can see what we did there. If we take negative 2x and we add positive x, right? One of the positive x and one of the negative x's made a 0, so we were left with this one negative x. And if we were to look at our 1's here, 1 minus 3 is negative 2, and so you have 2 negatives and 3 negatives left over, so that leaves us with 5 negatives, which is what we have. On the right mat, let's see what we can do for 0 pairs here. So positive 3 and negative 3 makes 0. So I'm going to remove those. And so I'm left with a negative x. All right, and what am I left with for my 1's? A positive 1. All right. All right, and so when I look at this 2 minus 3 is negative 1, and then negative 1 plus 2 gives me that 1 that I have left on my mat. All right, and so what we did here is we made zeros. We can call that combining like terms. I'm going to write CLT for combining like terms. All right, now what can I do? I've flipped regions, I've made zeros, and now I know I can balance or remove the same from both sides. So I can take away this negative x from each side of my mat. All right, and so when I do that, so I'm removing negative x. All right, and so when I do that, I'm left with negative 5 on the left, and I'm left with positive 1 on the right. All right, so which side is greater? We know that the left side is greater because, the right side is greater because 1 is greater than negative 5. So our right side is greater.